Happy Juneteenth. Thank you for stopping by. Grab a coffee and let's get smarter together. Today I want to talk about what happens when an identity is threatened. This is also where we'll go back to the exact moment the equation time equals progress was introduced as a basic fact into European culture. The place to start is probably that our identity or self is a creation. What happens is that we collect all kinds of data and generate a model of a physical universe from it inside our head. It's like a tapestry on which we at some place drew a boundary and declare the inside ourselves. It's all in service of the creation of a steady enough network with enough processing power to generate one true and complete model of a universe, the meaning of all life. I explain in several other videos how and why. Just so much here to accomplish the main goal, the generation of a world, and therefore self can't be a one-time event, but must be a continuous process. There's not one self. There are many, many, many versions of a self created every moment. That's how it should work. But the sad fact is, all data processing is open to hacking. That's how we domesticated animals and humans. Though in humans we don't call it domestication, and yet Uber explorers used the same ideas when they needed everyone else to believe that the world was created just once by an outside entity, as is every self. Their goal was that everyone stopped to actively look for new data and instead used the freed up capacity in their heads to reprocess the same data, already existing knowledge about the physical universe, again and again, to manual labor. That's what they needed for their identity, that of an Uber explorer, to survive. The Uber explorer identity started out as a counter-reaction to earlier hacking attempts on a much smaller scale. Some people insisted on their right to opt out of any manual labor, to only ever use their capacity to process new data. This isn't natural either. Any living being is subject to time and metabolic restraints, what makes it necessary for us to reprocess a certain amount of data. So to live without ever pre-processing any data, you need support, social buy-in. But even before that, you need to give up on constantly matching yourself to the changing model of the world and define yourself as just that one thing, of which you clearly define the characteristics. You need to create an identity and make it your only identity. Once that's done, you can't lose this identity again, because it's either this one unique line around the data in the tapestry or no line at all. And you can't ever allow others to meddle with this line by redefining your identity, because it's the only one you got. Enter the Indigenous critique. In Europe, the defense of the Uber explorer identity via domestication of the humans had worked quite well. Not to a small part, because Europe had been for most of the time in question rather isolated. But then, on a fateful day in 1492, Europe crashed into the Americas. Boom! And the stories that came back to Europe made one thing clear. Life didn't have to be as it was. And stories weren't the only thing that came back from the brave new world. The indigenous people took one good look at matters in Europe, and the only thing they had in response was devastating critique. It mostly centered on the fact that people had lost all connection to the world generation process within themselves and thus were feeling the meaning of life. But since didn't even have the words to understand the concepts anymore, and Germany just starts playing. They translated it, following Pythagorean thought, into things relating to numbers, like equality and everything money and property. European uber-explorers recognized the critique as what it was, an attempt to redefine their identity. And they reacted like J.K. Rowling when people tried to redefine what it means to be a woman. They fought back, putting all their might behind a lie. They couldn't say that it was awful to live like the First Nations in North America. Too much had been reported about the advantages people enjoyed in these societies. Too many stories had been told about Europeans who, once rescued from the Native Americans, had used the first opportunity to return to them. But they could say that the only reason the critics, these First Nations, could live like they did was because they were behind Europe development-wise. Like traveling to other places like the Americas was really a journey into the long-forgotten past because these places had been settled so much later than Europe. This might be the place to mention that until not that long ago, experts fought tooth and nail to defend their conviction that humans had at the earliest could have settled the Americas 5,000 years ago. It's more like 20,000 years ago and maybe even earlier, but that's not the point. The point is, the equation of time with progress started out as a lie to protect an identity that requires from all of us an unnatural and unhealthy way of life simply for it to exist. And it becomes even clearer now that we have figured out that time doesn't exist. It is an illusion we create for ourselves to understand some things. Everything the average person today in the world knows about the human story, human nature, self-organizing, and economy, to name just a few fields, has been colored by the same sources. So, questions are in order. Question, explore, also known as think. Make a habit out of thinking. Let's turn thinking into the norm again. Like, comment, share and follow lest you miss a single opportunity to improve yourself and society. Once you do, we'll meet again at the coffee pot.